Dino Plumbing and Heating Kent, proud sponsor of Team Talk.
Hello and welcome to Team Talk live on KMTV. I'm Nicola Everett. On tonight's programme, we'll be showcasing some of the best Paralympic talent in Kent, covering table tennis, archery and the Invictus Games. Plus, as always, we'll have a roundup of the weekend's hockey and football with two Kent sides in early season relegation battles. But before all that, here's tonight's lineup. A roundup of the weekend's league and FA Trophy action as Gills look to bounce back against Bradford. Holcombe held by Hampstead. Kentside failed to win for the second week in a row. And Medway's Invictus star. We catch up with RAF hero Darren Young down under as the Invictus Games comes to a close.
The whole of the support network was unbelievable. We were the loudest out of 18 nations and it's been extremely good having my family here. And I don't think I could have done without them.
But as always, we start with football as 9 Kent sides were in FA Trophy action at the weekend. Meanwhile, Gillingham and Dover were both looking for 3 points against bottom of the table Bradford and Braintree. Here's the best of the action from the weekend.
We start with Dover in a bottom-of-the-table clash as they travel to Braintree, looking to continue their unbeaten run under new boss Andy Hessenthaler. But it was Braintree who took the lead after just 13 minutes. A simple corner found frontman Justin Amaluzor unmarked to nod home from just 4 yards out. And it took until the 70th minute to get a reaction from the Whites. Just like the first goal, the Whites started with a corner, but a pinpoint cross found Kevin Loco at the back post, who rose above the rest to draw them level. But perhaps a mislap of judgment from keeper Mitch Walker going to ground gave the referee no choice but to point to the spot on 78 minutes. Up stepped Reece Grant, who calmly slotted it down the heart of the goal to give Braintree all 3 points, but also Andy Hessenthaler's first defeat as Dover boss. So what did he think of his side's performance?
Not good enough. Braintree deserved to win, so we're very disappointed tonight. We knew it'd be a tough game, and we didn't compete well enough today. They wanted it more than us, which is disappointing to say, but that was the case. And the quality wasn't there today, so it's a bad loss, but we've got to get on with it. It sort of opened my eyes up today. What job we've got to do here? It's only our 3rd game, it's our first loss. We've now got to try and turn it around in the next few weeks.
Off to the Gallagher now, and for any of the Stones fans who were 10 minutes late to the game against Solihull Moors on Saturday, they would have missed most of the action. Just 3 minutes in, a wasted Stones corner meant Solihull could break, with the ball eventually falling to Danny Wright, who lashed it home. And the visitors doubled their lead on 8 minutes. Jamie Osborne somehow managed to wriggle his way through the Stones defence all the way to the byline before his pullback finally fell to Adi Yusuf to make it 2. And it was looking like it was going to be a long afternoon for Harry Wheeler's side if it wasn't for Blair Turgott, who found a yard just outside the box to strike this home to make it 2-1. The game started to calm down as Maidstone searched for an equaliser, but it was Solihull who put the game to bed on 75 minutes. Lee Morgan's goal kick left him in no man's land, and it fell to Jermaine Hilton clean through to slot home. The defeat leaves Maidstone just 2 points off relegation, and manager Harry Wheeler says he's disappointed his side couldn't follow his instructions.
Can't start like that. 3 of the poorest goals I've seen at this level. You give 2 up in the first 5 minutes. You're never going to optimally give people a head start, and that's exactly what we did. Counter check. You look at the setup; it was fine at the beginning. The man who scores is marking one of our players in the box, so his desire to get forward was better than ours. But as it goes out to the wide player, it's written in big letters in there: keep him down the line, first thing they do is let them come inside, and we can only we can only sort of you know, give them all the outlet and that, and it's a really poor goal, and then the second one's not much better.
Elsewhere in the National League, Ebbsfleet's financial troubles didn't affect them on the pitch as they held title-chasing Salford to a draw. Meanwhile, Dover's defeat means they swap places with Braintree at the foot of the table. 9 Kent sides were in FA Trophy action, but there were disappointing 2-1 home defeats for Hythe, Margate and Sittingbourne, while Whitstable and Sevenoaks were also knocked out, and Ramsgate were on the wrong end of a 6-0 defeat to Hornchurch. But there were better results for 3 Kent sides though, as Folkestone dispatched Leatherhead with a 5-1 victory, while Herne Bay and Tunbridge Angels picked up 2-1 wins to send them through to the second round. Moving up the leagues, and Gillingham manager Steve Lovell sent some of his team home after their disappointing midweek performance against bottom-placed Plymouth. So they had the perfect response against Bradford, as 4 second-half goals gave the Gills just their second win in 16 games and reduced the pressure at Priestfield.
To table tennis now, and as Minster's Ross Wilson has built on his Commonwealth success by becoming the world champion. The 23-year-old Class 8 player beat China's double Paralympic champion Zhao Shui in the final at the World Championships earlier this month. We're also joined by Tunbridge Wells para-archer Tania Nadarajah. We'll be speaking to her shortly, but first, Ross, on your return from Slovenia, world champion, many congratulations. How does that feel?
Thank you very much. Yeah, crazy feeling. I didn't really expect it, to be honest, at all. And yeah, being able to share it with all my team and everyone back home is just incredible. This
is a sport you've been playing since you were a very small child. Is it something you'd always dreamt of? Yeah, so when I was 7, actually, that's when I really started. I started going to my local club, and someone said, you know, you got to have a dream, you got to have a goal that you can work towards. And I said, oh, I want to be world champion. And they kind of had a little laugh, and they were like, no, but we need like a proper goal. And I turned around to my mum and I said, no, I actually want to be world champion. So. Did even you think it would become reality? I mean, how much has it surprised you to reach this level at still such a very young age? Yeah, I mean, it's a crazy feeling. You can't really ever imagine it, you know, and even when you get closer and closer to it, you can never really get too excited or anything, because, you know, anything can happen to stop you getting there. So you know, the first one that I was actually, the first World Championships, I missed through injury. So like being able to come to this one and actually qualify for it, get there, and then kind of compete at the highest level was just a great feeling. And tell us about your opponent in the final, because he was very tough opposition, wasn't he? Absolutely, yeah. So he beat me in the London 2012 semi-finals, and then he won London, won Rio. Yeah, he's a fantastic player, and I knew that going into the match. And he plays so strong at close points. So just when everything's getting a bit nervous, he ups his game, and I knew that going into it. So I really had to bring my absolute best, and fortunately I did. Was that playing on your mind a little bit going into the match, or did you try and forget about his past record? To be honest, I didn't think about it at all. I didn't think he's double champion and everything. I just went into the game like any other player. And I was completely logical with my thinking. I was going completely basing it on my strategy of what I was going to do, how I was going to play against him, and I didn't really let emotion get in the way with it, whether that be wanting to win the World Championships or thinking he's a really good player. So yeah, it was just keeping calm and following what I wanted to do. Now, you've had quite a tough route to becoming world champion, because you actually had to spend 2 years away from the sport through injury. How difficult was that, and how difficult was it to come back from that? Yeah, so I mean, I started with a 7mm gap in my shoulder. I had knee surgery, elbow surgery, and, you know, coming back and, you know, training for a little while and then getting another injury, coming back, getting another injury. It really does kind of knock you mentally. So, you know, I just had to keep strong and know that in the back of my head I wanted to achieve all these things, even if they did feel like they were getting further and further away. I just stuck at it, and it's just made it that much more sweet actually now doing it. And your family back home in Minster, how much support have they been, particularly through those tough times? They've been an incredible support. Without them I really wouldn't be able to do what I do, and you know, just the support of friends, family, they are really the reason why I can do this. So. And what's kind of the table tennis scene like in Kent? Because you're not the only one in the Paralympics from the county. We know of Will Bailey as well. What's it like for the pair of you?
Yeah, so it's fantastic to have Will as a teammate of mine. We can kind of train together the whole time, we push each other, and that really is kind of, I think, the definition of healthy competition, because we can just push each other the whole way, and that really does make you raise your game. And then when you're getting into the international scene, you're already kind of at the level where you can compete with those guys.
Of course, you've had the World Championships and the Commonwealth Games this year, but some very big years coming up leading up to Tokyo in 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Tokyo's now, and it's kind of all towards that now, and that's a real kind of thing that's going on in my brain as well. Straight away after the World Championships, I was thinking straight into Tokyo, so can't wait to get that started as well.
So what's the process as far as that's concerned? Have you got qualification coming up?
Yeah, so qualification is, I think you have to be top 6 or top 8 in the world, and that starts straight away really for me, so it will be straight away next year, beginning of next year, all the way through. And yeah, so it's kind of no rest for me or anything, and straight back to it.
Well, Ross, once again, many congratulations and all the very best as you get ready for Tokyo 2020. That's it for the first half of Team Talk, but don't go anywhere, as we'll be speaking to Kent para archer Tania Nadarajah and a former RAF firefighter from Medway who's been competing in the Invictus Games. See you after the break.
Fondest memories of the Invictus Games, apart from the obvious answer, which would be winning the medals, I think part of that would be meeting one of my football heroes, David Beckham.
You'll hear about Darren's achievements at the Invictus Games after the break, but there's just enough time for your Team Talk teaser. This week we're asking you, in what events did the former serviceman win bronze and silver medals? Find out after the break. Welcome back to the second half of Team Talk. Now, before the break, we asked you, in what events did Medway's RAF hero Darren Young win medals at the Invictus Games? The answer we were looking for was silver in the team sitting volleyball and bronze in the men's discus. Well done to those of you at home who got that one right. And a very big well done to the man himself. Former RAF firefighter Darren Young spent a week down under at the Invictus Games in Sydney. He even celebrated his 49th birthday at the Games, a multi-sport event created by Prince Harry for wounded, injured or sick armed service men and women. Larka Christensen caught up with him as the Games came to a close.
He returns with silver and bronze medals, but for Kent's very own Invictus Games athlete, his trip was about much more than medal. Darren Young spent 16 years in the RAF, but was discharged with spinal and shoulder injuries in 2006. After leaving the army, he struggled with depression and his physical injuries, but sport has boosted his confidence. Mr. Young travelled to the Invictus Games in Sydney, Australia with his wife Mel and son Hudson, and he couldn't be happier about the experience.
Everything about this tournament, the last 7 days, has been second to none. It's been a brilliant atmosphere. Just being involved in the Olympic Park in Sydney, it's an experience I'll never forget.
Darren Young will be taking 2 medals back with him from the Games, a silver for the team sports sitting volleyball and a bronze for the discus throw. Team UK took home almost 10 medals from the Games, ranging from bronze in wheelchair basket to silver in wheelchair rugby and several golds in men's and women's swimming. But what was the best part of the Invictus Games? For Mr. Young, it was meeting a sporting hero.
Apart from the obvious answer, which would be winning the medals, I think part of that would be meeting one of my football heroes, David Beckham. He's very good at asking about what we did, how the Invictus Games was going, but most of all he had a good chat with Hudson, my son, who is registered with Gillingham Football Club. He asked about if he was a lefty or a righty, and when he said a left-footed player, that the England squad need a few more left-footed, so hopefully that's a little bit of an endorsement and try and kick him on.
The Invictus Games weren't all medals and sports stars though. At the end of the day, Mr. Young said it was all about the support network.
The Team UK was, the whole of the support network was unbelievable. We were the loudest out of 18 nations, and it's been extremely good having my family here, and I don't think I could have done without them.
So far, Mr. Young has medalled in the Warrior Games and now in the Invictus Games, but he's far from done yet.
So what's next for me? Invictus Games 2020, here we come.
Larka Christensen for KMTV.
Switching to something different now, as Westerham's para-archer Tania Nadarajah is gearing up to make her mark at the 2020 Tokyo Paralympic Games. Tania, who trains at the Centre of Excellence for Disabled Archery in Kent, has spent the summer training at the Team GB headquarters in Shropshire, and I'm delighted to say she joins me now. So, Tania, it's obviously been a very busy summer for you. Tell us how it's all gone and how you're preparing.
Yeah, very busy indeed. We had the European Championships, which was in Pilsen in the Czech Republic in August, and then a couple of internationals before that as well, just to gear up for everything. And I do lots of domestic competitions in the UK too, so yeah, very busy indeed.
Now tell us a bit about your background in the sport, because you really have been on kind of a meteoric rise to success. This is a sport that you took up for fun in 2014, is that right? And then 2 years later, you find yourself in Rio.
That's it, yeah. I tried it when I was in hospital following an accident in 2009 as part of my rehab, and tried it again in sort of 2014, thinking I'd quite like a sport that would get me out and about meeting people. I had no idea it was going to become my career. But yeah, it's been quick, but it's been so much fun.
So did you just have a natural flair for it?
Apparently so. Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I guess you know, the coaches saw that I was coachable, I was eager to learn, and I was willing to give it everything. I mean, how many times can someone be offered the opportunity to go to Paralympic Games in a couple of years? So I had to grab it with both hands, really. Absolutely,
quite incredible. But what skills do you need? Because it is a very accurate sport, isn't it?
Yes, you've just got to be able to stick to a task. So it's obviously quite repetitive. There's lots of kind of doing the same movements over and over again. There's a lot of practice in isolation. So you've just got to be able to concentrate and focus really well and just kind of keep motivated even when things perhaps aren't going according to plan.
And tell us a bit about the facilities in Kent where you train. How good are they?
Yeah, they're great. I mean, we've got an indoor venue, so you can see from the video there. It's really handy, obviously, over the winter to be able to find somewhere indoors to train, which is great. And also the same kind of facilities available in Shropshire, but we have much longer distance at the GB Training Centre of 70 metres, which is the full Olympic and Paralympic distance.
We were talking to Ross about qualification. I should think it's the same for you in the para-archery. How does it work? What's the lead up to Tokyo like for you? Yeah, well, we're going into a really big year. So 2019 is the World Championships, and that's where we win our quota places for the Paralympic Games. So this time around, for my particular category, which is recurve open women, it's even harder than it was for Rio. There were 32 spaces available for women in Rio, and now there's only going to be 24. And to win that, we need to be in the top 8 at the World Championships next year. So it'll be difficult, but a challenge that I'm looking forward to. Are you pretty confident of being able to make it to Tokyo? It's so difficult to tell. Archery is a game of millimetres, so you never really know what will happen on the day. And of course, we're completely at the mercy of the elements. So it's really difficult, but I'm going to be doing everything I can to make sure I'm there. What's your schedule going to be? Can you talk us through kind of how your training is panning out at the moment? Yeah, we've actually just come back off a end of season break. So I had, I think about a week and a half off. So straight back into training again. So we train 6 days a week, and it's kind of 6-7 hours of shooting a day, followed by gym time. So yeah, it's pretty busy, and going into next year, we'll have a couple of international competitions in the run-up, and then the World Championships, which is going to be in the Netherlands. And you mentioned how repetitive the sport is. What sort of work are you having to do in the gym to get your body ready for that? Because I should think you need a huge amount of upper body strength, don't you? Yeah, you do. You've got to be able to sustain it over quite a long period of time as well. Our qualification can take, on average, about 3 hours, so you need to be able to sort of power through all the way right up to the end. So lots of kind of pulling exercises, lots of upper body work, and yeah, very sport specific strength that you need for archery. So quite often you'll find big, heavy sort of rowers, weightlifters and so on that are not able to handle the poundage of a bow just because it's such a sport-specific strength. As well as the fitness, is it mentally quite a tough sport to get through as well? Yeah, you've got to be able to hold your nerve, and that's something that a lot of archers can struggle with, especially on a big stage. So yeah, there's a lot of kind of mental work as well to just build up your confidence and your focus, especially for something like a long qualification round. And then of course when you switch to head-to-head eliminations, it's very quick and sharp, and it's literally whoever holds their nerve the best that's probably going to win it. Hopefully you will be doing that throughout the next couple of years, Tania, as we build up to Tokyo 2020. Thanks ever so much for joining us tonight. Hockey now, and Holcombe women were looking to continue their unbeaten start to the season. Meanwhile, Sevenoaks men were still searching for their first win of the season as they took on East Grinstead. Here's a recap of the weekend's results.
In the Women's Premier Division, both Kent sides were defeated at the hands of Buckingham and Slough. Holcombe's Steph Elliott with the only goal from the two sides. But it wasn't enough, as they lost their first game of the season to leave them 6 points off the top of the table. Meanwhile, in the Men's Premier Division, goals from Ali Taylor and Tom Chandler were not enough for Sevenoaks, as they were beaten 3-2 by East Grinstead to continue their wait for their first win of the campaign. And it was a second straight game without a win for Holcombe after they were held to a goalless draw at title-chasing Hampstead and Westminster.
Now, just before we go, let's take a look at some of the best tricks, tackles and tweets during the last week or so. Here's Team Talk's Top Corner, and we kick off with our top 3 plays.
And number 3 in this week's Team Talk Top Corner is this tweet from Gillingham's club photographer Julian Hart. The Gills picked up just their second win in 16 games at the weekend, with 4 second-half goals thanks to those two on the floor there, Elliot List and Tom Eves. And you can almost feel the relief in the photo. Coming in at number 2 in this week's Team Talk Top Corner is Maidstone gymnast James Hall, after his part in Team GB's performance at the Artistic Gymnastics World Championships. The team finished a respectable 5th in Doha, But it wasn't enough to get into the medals, and they'll have to wait a bit longer to qualify for the Olympics. Coming in at top spot this week, though, is Kent cricket vice-captain Joe Denley, with his feature in his first T20 international since 2010. But not only did he feature, the Canterbury-born all-rounder picked up 4 wickets to secure England's victory against Sri Lanka. And to top off a great week and a great season, he's already been included in the Test squad for next week.
Well, Ross and Tania are still alongside me. Both thanks ever so much for coming in tonight. I know it's going to be a couple of busy years for you. Ross, what's coming up for you over the next few months?
So now it'll just be back to like kind of off-season training, where it's basically loads of technique-based things, and this is where kind of all the hard work gets put in. So it's just a lot of on the table work now. All
the stuff that we don't see going on behind the scenes before that success. And Tania, for you?
Yeah, much the same really. This is where all the hard graft gets done. So we're indoors now, and we'll be doing lots of work on technique and any sort of changes to equipment and so on. Because that's a really big, important factor in archery. So yeah, it's going to be busy.
Well, both thanks ever so much for joining us on Team Talk tonight. Hopefully we shall see you in Tokyo 2020. That's all from us this evening. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram and Snapchat using the handle KM_. Team Talk will be back next Monday. We'll see you then. Bye-bye.
Dino Plumbing and Heating Kent, proud sponsor of Team Talk.